Hello and welcome everybody to the webinar entitled Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? Understanding Suffering in God's World. We are very lucky to be joined here with a group from around the world to try to tackle this very important, difficult topic with Rabbi Friedman. This is a three-part series. Each part will be recorded. We do encourage everybody. If you have any questions on topic, if you don't understand something the rabbi is saying, please make sure to ask right away, and I will present the question to the rabbi. We do want to make sure that everybody gains as much information and understanding into this topic as possible. So don't be afraid to ask. If anything is unclear, if anything needs a little bit more explanation, then please be sure to ask us in the comment section below, and we will present it to the rabbi. This part of the series is entitled, Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? And without further ado, Rabbi Friedman.
Welcome. We're dealing with probably the most painful and the most fundamental issue in Torah and Judaism and in life. Why do bad things happen to good people? Where's the justice? Right? Many people have been devastated, their lives destroyed, because they couldn't find an answer to this question. We need to appreciate what that's like, what that does to people, and what might help, what attitude, what information might make it a little more tolerable so that we can go on living enthusiastically despite what seems to be a total injustice in God's world. So let's start at the beginning. There's pain in this world, whether it's righteous people, good people that are suffering, or not. The fact is, there's pain. There is suffering in this world. There is death in this world. There is tragedy in this world. So the first question we need to ask is, how did this happen? So before we get to good people suffering bad things, let's first understand where all of this comes from. Why does it exist in the first place? We also have to appreciate the basis on which this question stands. The question, why do bad things happen to good people, obviously comes from a sense of justice, right and wrong, which is natural to all people. Even children have a sense of justice. When something is not fair, they will be the first to complain. In fact, they'll find things not fair even when they are fair. But that sense of outrage, how can you be unfair, is a very natural reaction, and it is uniquely human. Second thing we know from the question itself is that we are aware that there are good people. It would be a cheap and an ugly escape to try to blame the person for his suffering. Do bad things happen to good people? No. Good people don't have bad things happen to them. So anytime anything bad ever happens to a person, it proves that the person is not good. So you blame the victim. So bad things don't happen to good people. Where are those good people who nothing bad ever happens to? Well, they're rare. That's not acceptable at all. The question, why do bad things happen to good people, obviously assumes that people who suffer are good people. And therefore the question, where's the justice? You also have to assume that anyone who asks, why do bad things happen to good people, must believe in God. Because if there is no God, then what are you asking? If we're just in the process of evolving from a lower life form to a higher life form that can better survive, then what is your question? As we evolve, people go through changes. The weak are eliminated. The herd is thinned. What's the question? Why should good people not suffer any more than bad people? So it's only because we do believe in God, that there is a judge and there is justice, that we can even ask that question. If you were truly secular and believed in Darwinian evolution, you couldn't ask that question at all. So given all of that, let's take a look at where does pain, suffering, death, tragedy, where does it come from? Did we create this mess? Did human beings introduce all this ugliness into an otherwise perfect world? Adam and Eve. Let's go right back to the beginning. Adam and Chava are in Gan Eden, and they are told not to eat from a particular tree. Why? Because if they did eat from it, they would die. You know the popular explanation to the story. But what if there's a deeper side? What if something more to the story than we've heard before? When God said to Adam, the day you eat from this tree, you will die, did death already exist? Or would Adam, by eating from the Eitz Hadas, create death, introduce death, cause death? If God says to Adam, the day you eat from it, you will die, then death already exists, at least in potential. And whoever eats from this tree will in fact die. This tells us very clearly that in Gan Eden there was no death. But if you eat from the tree, you will leave Gan Eden, and outside of Gan Eden there is death. Which means there were two worlds, the world of Gan Eden and the world outside of Gan Eden. Gan Eden was somewhat heavenly. But beyond the heaven, there was also earth. And earth includes death. Adam didn't create that. By eating from the Eitz Hadas, he chose to go down to that lesser world, to that imperfect world, because he felt a sense of mission that he left heaven to come down to the lowest world that needs repair. Gan Eden didn't need repair. So what happened when they ate from the Eitz Hadas is they actually volunteered to go into the world outside of Gan Eden. So God tells them what it's like outside of Gan Eden. Not only is there death, there's also pain in childbirth. There's also a struggle to make a living by the sweat of your brow. There's enemies Like the snake, there's competition, there's stress. This is the nature of the world we're in. So Adam and Chava, our Zaidi and Bubby, knew the nature of this world. They didn't create the pain. They didn't create the death. They didn't create the animosity. That's the world that needs fixing. So yes, in this world, there are painful things because it's the lowest of all possible worlds. And because it is low, there is life and there's the denial of life on all its many levels. Actual death, illness, which is partial death, pain, disappointment, suffering. That's our world. And we try to make it better. Elevate the world, fix the world, introduce godliness. A number of times in our history, we experienced an evil, a darkness, a nasty side of this world that was surprising. It was so overwhelmingly bad that we were paralyzed, at least for a generation. We couldn't imagine that a world this bad can ever get fixed. So yes, we're willing to put up with a lot in order to clean it. You got to get your hands dirty if you're going to clean the mess. But the mess that we encountered at, let's say, the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, first and second, that was overwhelming. Can we clean this up? Can the world ever get better after this? So we were discouraged, we were paralyzed for a while. But when the wounds healed, we were back, we were optimistic again. We took upon ourselves again to elevate this world and make it godly. L'saken olam, to fix the world by making God known in his world and making the world what he wants it to be. So we didn't start the fire. We are here to put it out. And even after a Holocaust, which really discouraged us and paralyzed us for 2 generations, here we are, asking the question again. Why do bad things happen to good people? Shouldn't happen. We believe in justice even after World War II. We believe that if you make a demand and if you choose life, we can make this world better, even a world that includes a Holocaust. So we need to understand and we need to know that no matter how dark or bad the world seems to be, it should come as no surprise. It is not our fault, and we are capable of turning it around and making it better. Another thing that is very important to know, and maybe you haven't heard this before, God created the world and everything in it. We know that. But does God himself, the creator, enjoy all of his creations? God created sin, but he doesn't like sin. He finds it an abomination, like non-kosher food. In order to create the world, God had to hide, because if he were totally revealed, it wouldn't be this world. It would be heaven, and he already has a heaven. So to make the world physical, to make the world mundane so that there would be freedom of choice, he has to hide. He doesn't like that. He hates that. In order for there to be free choice, he also has to create a Yetzer Hara, an evil inclination. He hates that. So he creates it begrudgingly, but regrets it every day. Then he has to send the godly soul down to earth in a body and share that body with the Yetzer Hara. A godly soul, a little piece of him, his daughter, his princess, as the Medrash refers to it. And he has to subject his daughter, his precious daughter, to this experience. He hates doing that. In fact, the Medrash, the Zohar says that it's like a king whose daughter gets married and goes to live with her husband. And the king says, to not be with my daughter, I can't take that. To not let her get married, well, I can't do that either. Eini yochel. So what's the solution? Make me a mishkan, v'shachanti b'seicham. Make me an in-law apartment in this world where the daughter is living, so that I can live with them and not be separated from my daughter. So that separation is something God does not like. To send his daughter not only into this world, but into Goos, an exile within an exile, and for 2,000 years, he hates that. He does not want. So he tells Adam, don't eat from the tree. I don't want you to go down into the world and suffer. But then again, when you do eat from it, you will go down into this world. And that's necessary. So here we discover God is not a disinterested, indifferent. There are things he truly gets pleasure from, everything holy, and there are things that he truly hates. Why then does he create things he hates? Because to achieve the purpose for creation in the first place, it has to include all the potential ugliness that we are going to turn around, redeem, elevate, purify, and turn into godliness. Only then will God be one and his name will be one. So how much hurt, how much pain does God experience when a Jew suffers, when any good person suffers? How much pain does God experience when bad people suffer? Although it's necessary, doesn't mean he likes it. So even when he punishes, this is not his pleasure. Where do we see God's kindness? The fact that God created the world and gave existence to something other than himself and to someone other than himself. This is called chesed. This is kindness, because God gives without judgment. He didn't wait for us to deserve. He didn't find us deserving. If we were deserving of life and he gave us life, that would be justice, not kindness. Kindness means giving indiscriminately, deserving or undeserving. It's not relevant. The instinct of kindness is to give. In God's example, for God to give indiscriminately without judgment, he has to create something other than himself. Human beings, if I want to be kind, there are a lot of people around that I can be kind to. I don't have to create them. For God to be kind, he created others. So it's not that God's kindness is how he treats us or what he does for us after we exist. Just the very fact that we exist is already his kindness. Because consider this. In order for God to have us exist, he has to pay a price. As we said before, in order for us, to be human beings with freedom of choice, that enables us to be his partner in creation or a pain in the neck, rebellious, stiff-necked. So in order for that to be, God has to, in a sense, pay a price. He has to deny himself and do things that are distasteful to him. But that's the only way we are going to be human beings with free choice. So to allow for our existence, he pays a price. He denies himself. He hides himself. He contracts himself. And he creates things he doesn't like. That's kindness. That's the ultimate selflessness. What do we get from this? When things go the way God wants, that is his greatest, deepest pleasure. That is his motivation for creating the world. That's what he's looking for. That's what he's after. That's what brings God's plan to fruition. All the things that don't serve his purpose, all the things that go in the opposite direction, he despises. They must therefore be temporary. They exist only to serve a purpose. They are not his natural pleasure. So when something bad happens, it's only a necessary strategic move. In order for the evil to be fixed, we have to encounter the evil. If we won't touch it, how can we fix it? So if there isn't pain, how do we make it go away? So we have to engage the enemy in order to defeat it. So when God puts us into Mitzrayim, for example, doesn't want to, it pains him, but it's a strategically necessary move. If the world is going to get fixed, we got to start with the lowest part of the world, which Mitzrayim was at the time, because you got to lift from the bottom. But then when he came to take us out of Mitzrayim, that was his pleasure. He didn't send a messenger, came himself. Excuse me. So why can we never thank him enough for taking us out of Mitzrayim when he is the one who put us there in the first place? Because we understand there are things he does not like. We don't like them either. But they're necessary as a means to an end. And then there are things that he does like that gives him personal pleasure, to take us out of Golus, to heal us after we are sick, to save us in a time of danger. That's his pleasure. And for that, we are grateful forever. So here's the general orientation. How do we handle bad things happening in the world? Number one, it is the nature of this world. We didn't cause it. Our job is to bring more and more godliness to the world until it tips the scale and the world moves towards godliness and away from its natural lowness, ugliness. God himself is pained when a Jew suffers, when a good person suffers. So it can't be that this is going to go on forever. It must be temporary, and it must be fixable. God will not create an evil that can't be redeemed. And where do we see God's kindness? In the fact that he wants us to exist even at a cost to him. This is called a true relationship. So what's going to happen when the evil finally stops, when the bad things are over, when the world has become good? What's going to happen is, as partners in creation, more than that, as God's children, more than that, as God's chosen, there will be a union, a oneness, where death will be removed from the world, all tears will be wiped away from every face, and earth, previously the lowest of all worlds, will become higher, greater, and more godly than heaven could ever be. Now we know there's a purpose, there's a rhyme and reason, there's an end, there's a goal. And if we put ourselves to the task, we can move this goal along and make it happen sooner. One quick example. A teenage girl whose childhood was one unbelievable misery. Terrible, terrible parenting, the abuse, the horrors. It was really, really bad. She went off to yeshiva, learned about God and about Mashiach and about Torah and mitzvahs, about heaven and hell, and was comforted until when she turned 17, she lost her faith, stopped believing in God and Mashiach, mitzvahs, Torah. I spoke to her, very intelligent, good girl, and she tells me all of this. And when she finishes, I said to her, so what are you going to do? She says, since I know how painful and how bad life can be, when I get older, I will find a way to make things better, to help people. So, playing devil's advocate, I said, make things better? You're going to make this world better? It's a lousy world. It's a terrible world. How are you going to make it better? She was a little taken aback. She said, oh, come on. It can always get better. I said, did you hear yourself? You don't believe in Mashiach? You don't believe in God? You don't believe in Torah? Halavai, everyone should believe as vividly as you do. It can always get better. That is amazing. That is amazing. So our first introduction to the subject of bad things happening to good people is that bad things must be temporary, that our purpose is to elevate the world until we eliminate all the bad things. that it's not our fault, and therefore we should not be discouraged by the bad things. Although, of course, we do. We can contribute to the bad, and we can darken what is already dark. But essentially, we didn't create the mess. We are here to serve God by fixing it. As it says about Adam and Chava, that Eibishter placed them in Gan Eden, la'ovda u'l'shomra. We are not here on vacation. We are here to do a job. So, without being crippled by the unholy, by the painful, by what seems to be an injustice, we keep plugging away. We're going to fix it. It's been a while. Our ancestors did a magnificent job to the point of Mesiras Nefesh. It must be that we've made a lot of progress, and we are here to put the finishing touches on the perfecting of the world. What we now need to talk about, and we will in our next conversation, what do we really mean by bad? Is anything we don't like bad? Every disappointment is bad? Sometimes we interview for a job and we don't get the job, and we say it's bad, and then we find out that the company closed a week later. So was it bad? Child gets on an airplane and the parents are so happy the child is going off to camp and the plane crashes. So was getting on the plane good? Some guy gets on the plane and he's dragged off the plane. Bad? Oh, it depends on where that plane ends up. So a guy gets on the plane and he thinks that's wonderful, but the plane crashes. A guy misses a flight, thinks that's bad, but the plane crashes. So really, what do we mean by bad? Is there anything that is, by definition, bad? We need to understand this. Secondly, how can we define anything as bad when we don't have the facts? In a court of law, if we were to claim that something happened that is bad, would we have the evidence? Can we demonstrate what came before and predict what's going to come later so that we can accurately describe this event as bad? We don't know. We don't have access to the evidence, to the information. Secondly, or thirdly, we need to understand where reward and punishment comes in. When we ask, why do bad things happen to good people? Are we going to accept any answer at all? If I could explain to you that bad things happening to good people is actually a good thing, would you accept it? Of course not. So here's the things we need to talk about next. Do we really want justification for bad things happening to good people? Or are we asking the question more as an objection? We don't want to justify the bad things that happen. We want it to stop. And so if I gave you a good answer, would that satisfy? And if it did satisfy, and then you're going to walk away and say, oh, I know why bad things happen to good people. It makes perfect sense. Have you just lost your morality? Have you just lost your decency? Lot to think about, but it is so important. So to be continued, and until then, let's make the world a little better. If it really bothers us that bad things happen to good people, then let's do our part to make sure that good things happen to good people. We can't object to the loss of life unless we celebrate life itself. And to the degree that we are enthusiastic about life, to that degree we can complain about the bad things that happen to good people.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Friedman. Thank you for this introductory class. I know that in the later classes, we will be getting into more how to apply this to personal life and to personal struggles, especially when they are happening because of other people, etc., etc., and of course, getting to all of your questions. Please remember that this recording will be sent out to you, to your emails shortly. The next class will be the same time a week from today, next Monday, and we look forward to seeing all of you there. Until then, we should only hear good news.